you for so quickly arriving. I have to say that I actually could have watched the video by Justin Mohn. I have a vague memory of being up in the early hours, and I saw that video and, all the sensational, well, the title of the video, I saw the title of the video and I thought, no, I don't want to be watching it at this hour of the morning. And also, I happen to be a member of a Telegram group where they often post, why am I in such a group? Well, that's the question, isn't it? Why am I bumping along at the bottom with degenerates who like posting gore and porn to the extent that I'm so bored of the whole thing that I didn't watch the thing. I guess I kind of wish I had watched it now that I know that it's been taken off. And also on Twitter, you can't actually search for Justin Mohn because it just doesn't come up with anything. It just says, retry. Something went wrong. Try reloading. So we can read between the lines and know that social media platforms think it's significant at any rate. I can tell you what I think is so significant about it. The suspect is Justin Mohn, 32, and the victim is Michael Mohn, 68. It is interesting because of the ages of the two. I mean, obviously, the father's a boomer, and if you're 32, you're Gen Z. And there has been a lot of discourse about the phenomenon of boomers and what the Americans call Gen Z. It is a feature of the time that they grew up in, the kind of culture they were subjected to, the education they received, and what passed for normal if you were born Gen Z, which is, let's just have a look. I will resist the temptation to say Gen Z because it's an American expression, is it not? Generation Z, colloquially known as Zoomers, they are demographic cohorts succeeding millennials and preceding Generation Alpha. Yes, it's starting again in a vicious circle. So each decade has a name. So there's the silent generation, 1928 to 45, baby boomers, 1946 to 64, Generation X, 1965 to 1980, millennials, Generation Y, 1981 to 96, Zoomers, 1997 to 2012, Generation Alpha, early 2010s to mid 2020s. It does seem a bit arbitrary. I wonder. Well, I wonder if anybody can explain to me what it's obviously not done by decades. It's done by, well, I don't know. If somebody can tell me, I would be grateful. But we are talking really about the generation gap. and how the generations don't quite see eye to eye on a number of things. And obviously, Justin Mohn didn't see eye to eye with his father on a number of things, to the extent that he killed his father. Uh, his behaviour has been described by neighbours to be odd. Uh, he went round the neighbourhood, stopping every now and then to smoke a joint. Is that so odd these days? We don't know. It's very difficult to make up your mind or even define what is normality. I mean, if you're in a lunatic asylum, then it is normal to be mentally ill. And if you did go around in Aztec times to uh, gauge the mental health of people, I guess it would be, well, it would be interesting. Why do I mention this in particular? It could be, well, a kind of common or garden patricide. It's not unknown for children to kill their parents or parents to kill their children. But I think we all know that there are political implications to this because of the father's categorized generation of being a boomer. There's been a lot of talk about boomers and a lot of resentment towards them by their children, by younger generations, because I think the perception is that boomers look down on subsequent generations, saying they don't know, they're not as accomplished as Zoomers, as boomers were, and that is somehow to do with their um, degeneracy, which has nothing to do with their parents, etc. And also, I find that there is not much discussion between the generations about politics. They're not really able to talk about these things. I speak to many, well, to many different men of different ages, and as you would expect, men from a different generation would have a different outlook to people older or younger than they are. And the difference is becoming even sharper as the laws change even more quickly. And I'm basically saying it's a danger and makes my case for me that we need laws that are stable and stay the same from time to time and doesn't change as often as our politicians, our corrupt and incompetent ruling classes change their underwear. We want rules to stay the same so we know what they are and respect them a little bit more than the rules that our corrupt and incompetent rulers make up as they go along, and that is a problem of enforcement and obedience. So, as I was saying, Justin Mohn was a boomer of a certain generation, of a certain outlook, and his son didn't see eye to eye with him, but he was living rent free and apparently sponsored by his parents to the tune of, I think, $540 or something. So obviously, patricide is a. And this story is, I guess, interesting because possibly many many adult children do not see eye to eye with their parents on many political issues. Of course, not not all these disagreements end in murderous beheadings. But I think it is a time for reflection on what this all means. You can imagine there being a play, a movie, if not at least a documentary about how the whole thing happened. Um, we would like to know. We would like to know exactly what Justin Mohn was thinking of. Um, Jim Goad wrote quite an interesting article in Countercurrents. That was the one I first read. And of course, these these family murders, as we would have to call patricide, matricide, filicide, and uh, what other ones are there? Fratricide, sororicide. And if you kill your spouse, it's called mariticide. When you kill your marriage by killing your spouse. So these words are interesting in that they are a category of homicide that deserve a particular category, I suppose. Or people think that these acts of homicide deserve their own special category. Of course, it is worse to be killed. I don't know. I don't know. Is it? I think it must be worse to be killed by your spouse. Although I have heard it said that crime figures tell you that if you're going to get murdered, you probably will be. You're more likely to be killed by somebody you know. Um, this horror of being murdered by some illegal immigrant. Maybe it doesn't happen as often as people think. Now, I should try and look up. This is how I've searched it. Murder, who is most likely to kill you? And actually, there's an article in Sky News about it. So it says men are more likely to be victims of homicide than women. Now, isn't that interesting? I guess this really applies to the UK. And it's under the heading who's most likely to kill you. But then let's go for the text part of this webpage. The most dangerous place for a woman to be where they are at most when they are most at risk of being assaulted or murdered is in their own home. Surprise, surprise. I think that applies to men as well. Last year, 227 women were killed in England and Wales. 89% were killed by someone they knew. Um, I think this only applies to women. I should really look up the one for men. 77% were killed in their own home. Over the last 5 years, more than 40% of women died at the hands of a partner or an ex-partner. So we don't know what it was before that. These figures seem to be a bit skewed. Um, okay, here's the Reddit one. Uh, statistically speaking, the most likely person to kill you is you, followed by the person you love most. That's quite a thought, isn't it? Global study on homicide. It's a bit vague. Homicide trends and pattern megatrends and homicide, understanding homicide. Okay, I'll go for understanding homicide. So we've got three categories: homicide related to criminal activities, two, interpersonal homicide, socio-political homicide is the third category. Okay, I'll read you A, B, and C. So A, each of these three broad categories of homicide types is further subdivided. A, homicide related to criminal activities is divided into homicide related to organized criminal groups and gangs on the one hand, and homicide related to other criminal activities, for example, robbery on the other. B, interpersonal homicide is divided into homicide perpetrated by intimate partners or other family members, and other interpersonal homicide perpetrated outside the family context, for example, killings perpetrated by acquaintances or neighbours. C. Now that's the most interesting one, really. Socio-political homicide is divided into homicide related to social prejudice, political aim, civil unrest, and other socio-political agendas. For example, vigilante killings, unlawful killings by the police, or killings resulting from communalism, casteism, and class conflict. Hmm. So this patricide by Justin Mohn on his father, Michael Mohn, has elements of the two. And that, I think, is what makes it so interesting. Yes, of course, it's very bad to kill dad. But what makes the story so turbocharged, in my view, is the fact that it was about a political disagreement, which is not unique to this, to Michael and Justin Mohn. I think it has particular potency because there is this sense of alienation between the boomers and subsequent generations. And this is something that will continue to play out. I mention it in particular because it is part of my thesis that the generations don't communicate with each other properly, and neither do the sexes. And since most people do not enjoy a stable family and are mostly alienated from their parents and their siblings, there will be, well, more inter-sibling rivalry or angst that tend not to be resolved because of the absence of the father. I know this was not the case with Justin Mohn. I suppose it's just going to be a matter of time before they make a movie of this killing, because it has these well, socio-political overtones that has resulted in Twitter censoring. Searches for Justin Mohn. I mean, it's still the same. And I made the search about 20 minutes ago. So I'll just try Michael Mohn and see what happens. Crikey. The wife of decapitation victim Michael Mohn reportedly found her husband's head in a cooking pot after he was allegedly killed by their son. So obviously he was mad. And yes, the sad thing is they look a very nice couple. And somebody is suggesting that Trump's got something to do with it. I mean, you see how politicized it is, and the hashtag vote blue to stop the stupid. I think that's a pretty low blow. Okay, so basically they're blaming Trump for the murder of Michael Mohn. Can you believe it? I must say I'm surprised. So are they suggesting that Mohn is a Trump supporter and it's sorry that father and son didn't agree about supporting Trump? There's a short clip of him talking for 17 seconds on Twitter. I'll put it in the chat in case anybody is interested for reference. Oh, they're really blaming Trump for it. This is just sort of new levels of crazy and evil, I guess. Trump and his MAGA cult followers are responsible for the beheading of federal government employee Michael Mohn, tweets someone. It's almost as if it's planned. That they're just going to make horrible things happen and blame it on Trump. But how is Trump to blame? Perhaps we will get a transcript of what Justin Mohn actually said. Or perhaps I can play it for you. Hold on, let me see if I can. Oh, I expect that we'll hear more about this grisly story and hear more attempts to blame it on Trump. Evil upon evil in a world that has gone mad.